gentlemen, and welcome to the first ever, the inaugural, the flagship, the pilot episode of the Shaolin Sports Podcast. I'm Ray Palma. I'm alongside my friend, my partner in crime, my friend Peter Timmins. Peter, welcome to the broadcast.
Doc, are we serious right now? This is something special. We talked about this maybe 3 or 4 different times over the last month, and without Stevie O being to my left and producing this, what he has in front of us, this production that he has in front of us, this is going to be something epic that we're going to make this last bigger and better than what we can ever imagine in our lives.
So let's give a shout out to my friend Martha Cristoforo, head coach St. Peter's. He gave Peter and I a shot to work together broadcasting games, and we decided we wanted to branch it out. We kind of wanted to figure some things out, and Stevie O came along with his productions, and you'll see by the quality here and the camera work and just the soundtracks and everything you see here is stuff that Peter and I could certainly never do. But we're looking to make something happen. We want to have a consistent podcast, once a week podcast. Okay, we're going to do a podcast once a week. We're going to talk about sports. We're going to talk about life. We're going to talk about situations. We want to have guests, right, Peach? We're going to have coaches, local bartenders, local celebrities. We're West Brighton based, so it might favor that a little bit, Peach. What do you think?
No, I'm going to make it very clear to what our viewers are going to see and hear. We are not doing religion. We're not doing politics. We're going to talk exactly for what it is. If we like it, we don't. We're going to be honest. And I know it might be a positive or offensive to some people. We're not going to go too offensive, but we're going to make it very clear that our opinions are our opinions, and it doesn't represent anything else of Staten Island community or the coaches or players or any outreach programs there are. We are going to be very clear that our opinions are our opinions. But I'll tell you right now, we have something lined up for the next at least year of what we're going to make Staten Island bigger and better of sports across the board.
We're looking to get out there. We set it up. We'll also be looking to do some broadcasts, so look out in the future as we'll be looking to broadcast local games, local events. Obviously, any sport, baseball, football, basketball, softball, golf, tennis, lacrosse. Not just that, though. There's an event. If there's 2 teams going at it or a group, an individual event going at it, if there's a spelling bee, if there's a taco eating contest, if there's a hot dog eating contest, Peach, we want to cover that kind of stuff.
Listen, like you said it right. Give me a bocce ball at Hillside. Give me ping pong down at I-61. Give me 2 guys running down the street at 12 o'clock at night. We'll find a way to broadcast that.
So again, shout out Martha Cristoforo for kind of putting this tandem together. We did the Wagner High School versus St. Peter's opening game together. And it got, my longtime friend and teammate from high school, Peter, and myself, not much of a player in my day. I did play, but not very well. Peter, an all-American football player and all-city basketball player, not for nothing. So Pete brings the excellence in sports, and I bring more of the coach's perspective, I guess we would say. So our first topic is the hot topic here on Staten Island, Peach. We are alumnus of Curtis High School, class of 96 and 95, respectively. And Curtis High School is the New York City PSAL football champs, Peach.
I'll tell you what. I watched that game start to finish on a iPad at Random Manor Tavern. Now, obviously, watching the Jets, well, unfortunately, we'll talk about that at some point. But watching that game was nothing but spectacular, from ups and downs. Curtis down 13-0 at half, and then missed extra points, and then how it comes down to a double overtime with Curtis winning the championship on a missed extra point. But the game itself was phenomenal, and it gives – I was talking to Freddie Oliveri this morning, Doc, and because he drops his grandson off where we work at I-61. So Freddie has 4 championships. Gambo, as a head coach, Gambo has 4 championships as a head coach, but that gives Gambo 8 city titles. Unless I'm wrong, and I'll wait for my phone to get blown up, but that gives him 8 rings. That's a lot of rings for a man for high school championships, and a tremendous shout out to all of them.
Well, I had the privilege. I worked at Curtis for a time, and I was a JV basketball coach there as well, and I worked close with Pete Gambardella, and I know no one puts in more work, no one puts in more time, both as an educator and as a football coach. So shout out to Pete Mack and Coach Bukowski and Joe Amato, Damian McCaig, shout out DPM Contracting. Those guys put the time in. What I like the most out of it, Peach, is that for a PSAL game, the extra points, the kicking. Now, unfortunately for Rasmus Hall, it didn't work out in the end, but you don't usually see kickers at the PSAL level, and that was really cool to see in the city championship where both teams broke out the kickers, and kicking was a big factor in the football game.
Well, how about this? Curtis had a chance to actually go up by 1 when they scored to make it 13-13, and they had their extra point blocked to keep that game going to send it to overtime, where Erasmus actually, I went to double overtime with them. But it's amazing that the field goal, or I'm sorry, extra points came down to who won the city championships.
It was also incredible just the play. Curtis had a screen. They had to get Curtis got the ball back with about a minute left, drove down the field, a beautiful ball, perfectly thrown ball, only place it could be for the touchdown. You point out Erasmus Hall, I believe five-time defending city champions, stepped up. And a lot of kids from Erasmus Hall travel from Staten Island. So they're stealing some of our guys. And just great to see, and just the all-around effort from Curtis High School. And, again, we'll shout the coaches again. And there's many more coaches, but the ones that we know personally, Pete Mack, who's been there a very long time and is one of the great football minds on Staten Island. Joe Amato, a former colleague of ours, and we know how hard he works and how much he cares about the great game of football. Coach Bukowski's been there a very long time, I think, alongside Gambo the whole way. And Damian McCaig, and then amongst others, there's many other coaches there, I'm sure. Maybe Joe Luttrell's still there. I'm not sure who exactly is on the Curtis staff these days, but kudos to them, man. That was really cool to see. And as an alumnus of class of 96 and 95, respectively, shout out to Curtis Warriors and congratulations to you.
Now, Doc, I'm going to say this. Curtis lost their first game versus Moore, where people thought, oh my goodness, this could be a down year for Curtis. And there was actually saying, no, it's not. This is not going to be Curtis's year. Next year, they have big players coming back, maybe some recruiting, so forth. But they went on a 10-game winning streak, and they just dominated the PSAL. And you have to give that team, the players on that team, they bought in and believed that, what? Take the Moore loss out of the equation. They went on something historical this year for them to win that city championships, and you cannot look into, and I'm a Curtis Warrior, you like yourself, and say, if you don't believe in a system, then you're not a part of it. And they believed, and they actually dominated, and kudos to Curtis, and once again, everything they do for Staten Island.
And shout out to Coach Oliveri. He's the OG of all this. I remember I had Coach Oliveri as an earth science teacher in 1995, and it's still the best class I ever had, and the only regents I ever passed was because Coach Oliveri was the greatest teacher to a test in the history of education, and I learned a lot from that man from a football perspective. But we're going into that PSAL championship. A lot of people on the South Shore of Staten Island, Pete, could say that it was the wrong championship game. We should have had an all-island final, or at least the game Erasmus should not have advanced in the way they did, in the most controversial fashion you could ever possibly imagine.
If you're a true Staten Island sports high school believer, and if you saw the highlights of that game, so here's what it was. It was 40-40, and I don't know how many overtimes it was, maybe 4, 6. It doesn't even matter, but it was 40-40. So Tauntonville was going up to kick the extra point to win. It was blocked. Then a defender on Erasmus actually kicked the ball, and then no one jumped on it.
And he kicked the ball. I mean, this is like a Pele. He kicked the ball 30 yards.
It was like not a real thing. No whistle blown, no nothing. Tauntonville jumps on it. They go to another overtime, maybe in overtime 7. But then if you watch, the ball was actually passed in front to almost like a forward lateral for still no whistle, and then Erasmus goes in and scored the game, and, that's it, game over.
And it's just baffling to see you can have so many officials on the field with whistles and how they cannot see that. And if I'm Tottenville High School, and I'm sure they're extremely upset because Tottenville High School got hosed. Now, listen, the game goes on, it's 40-40, you still got to score and win, but Tottenville certainly should have had an opportunity to get possession back in overtime and the shootout style that they have in the PSL for overtime. So as a Staten Islander, I wish we had an all Staten Island final. Shout out Miss Natalie. I know her son's a Tottenville player, and she's my roommate over at work at I-61, so I know she's pissed off. And Tottenville has every right to be as furious as any school could ever be over any situation with the block kick, the forward lateral, the kicking the ball 30 yards. I mean, my goodness, Peach. As far as because I know how hard Tottenville puts the work in. I know how much how much time it takes. You're in camp in July. You're in camp in August. You're playing these games. It's what you work for. And to have it come down to something like that is just a damn shame. And My biggest regrets to Tottenville High School. You guys had a fantastic season.
And you know what? We're gonna make this very clear. We're not biased to any school. Curtis graduate. You know, we did St. Peter's football, and we have a lot of things lined up for other high school sports, and also different little leagues and so forth. We're not biased to any school. We're gonna tell it for what it is. And looking at the replays, Tottenville, they really, like you said it. Yeah,
screw job.
Literally,
it's the Montreal screw job.
When I say quarter-inch drill bit and just got drilled the wrong way.
Something along those lines. All I know for sure is that Tottenville High School deserved to at least get another possession. Peach, we're going to take a quick pause right now because
It's a good burger.
give me a score, Peach. What do you got? 1 to 10, decimals included. Smash burger scale, different than a regular burger scale. This is a smash burger.
Now, I'm going to put us on a level because it's kind of fast food. Like, you can dine in. I think there's 3 or 4 tables there. But I'm going to say it's a delivered burger. I'm going to give it a good 7.4.
I agree with Peach's assessment completely. There's some Shake Shack in here. There's some Wendy's in here. I love the sauce. I believe it's called, actually, I don't know what the sauce is called. What? Supreme sauce, I say. Supreme sauce.
It's like a difference, a little mayo, maybe like a Russian dressing. Steve, what do you think? Like a Russian dressing type sauce? Okay.
On my smash burger scale, I'm gonna give it a firm 7.9. I think it's it's not quite an 8, but and I'm gonna do one more because it came included. It was buy one burger, get a hot dog for free. And I love my glizzies, and I know Peach wouldn't want a hot dog because Peach is a lot more health conscious than I am. So very quickly, I ordered a hot dog with just cheese. All right, so we got a hot dog with just cheese. I'm sure the comments from Peach are going to come right now. Covered in cheese. Never going to complain about that.
I'll tell you, the dog looks good. It's a thin dog. It's not thick like a ballpark, but it looks like it's got good texture. I heard a little crunch to it.
There's a kick. I'm not sure if it's from the cheese or from the
like
burger.
like garlicky.
More of like a little spice, like a little look here. Hot dog scale solid 7.5, and the cheese is magnificent. So we're gonna stop.
And by the way, Doc, that was about 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, I want to point that out. We had a little recording stuff. We wanted to have it delivered on air, but then we had a few snafus as far as when the food would be delivered and such. Anyway, so Supreme Burger, Staten Island, New York. We're going to continue to food review for places. So any restaurants or food delivery joints that would want to reach out and have us review your stuff, please feel free to hit us up. Instagram, @Shaolin Sports 1. Twitter, Shaolin_sports. And we'll be on YouTube @Shaolin Sports. So we have a bunch of channels set up. Stevie O is the master of all technology that Peter and I are not. And it gives us the opportunity to do these amazing things. So, Peach, we'll transition from the No, we'll stay on the gridiron and mention the Catholic League AA championship game that we had a chance to broadcast. And shout out to Danny Shinada and Nobody Cares Sports for providing that broadcast with us that night. And I got to tell you, we broadcasted a lot of St. Peter's games, and we had an opportunity to watch the greatness of Jeremiah Williams and Marco Arruda all season long. Early on, weather freezing cold, rain, cold, all that. And very early in the game, Marco Arruda went down to a knee injury. And from that point on, the Eagles' offense suffered mightily in many ways.
You know, Doc, it hasn't rained in 57 days. And the 2 days we didn't want it to rain was the championship game that Friday and Thanksgiving that I hosted 28 people. And I was like, look at this. The 2 games we had the one game we didn't want rain, the other holiday we didn't want rain, and it rains. We can't control that. But that game, and it shows that what Arruda meant for that offense, and with him getting hurt, and he came back. Now, we always say they go to the NFL tent, and somehow these high school players, they persevere and they come back. But when C first scored, I said, what do they have to lose not going for 2? And they went for 2, and that wound up being the 8-7 final. But when you lose the second leading rusher in the Catholic School League behind Williams, it changes the dynamic of the entire offense, and it showed. And unfortunately, it was tough to broadcast because the rain gave a glare off the field. We had the rain coming in on the window where I couldn't see, and I know I think Bob was doing the game at the time with the camera. But that game, play that 9 out of 10. I personally feel St. Peter's wins, but that night, you got to give it to C. They walked away with the trophy, and it was a tremendous game played on both sides of the ball.
First possession, the Eagles scored. Extra point, 7-0 Eagles. Next possession, the Vikings score. Go for 2, 8-7. So the first 2 possessions of the game.
Early on,
shut out the
first
rest
quarter.
Of the way. Shut out the rest of the game, and you got to give the shout out to the Vikings. The Vikings came, Tressa Baptiste in only his 3rd year, and Tressa's a North Shore guy coming from Curtis High School.
Another Curtis graduate.
Fantastic player in his own days. So shout out to Coach Baptiste. And also, like we say with Curtis, it's not just Coach Baptiste, there's a staff. So shout out to my guy, class of 96, Randy Luttrell, Rich Doyle, Jonathan Velasquez, Matt Muscarello, Mike Adamo, Nick Geistra, Brandon Young, and Mike Moog. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. They're all the coaching staff at St. Joseph by the Sea. My brother happens to be a lacrosse coach. Shout out to C Lacrosse and Coach Brian Palma. C put the work in, and C's defense put on a performance for the ages after getting a stop. And obviously, Arruda not being there may have altered the game plan somewhat, but you shut down Jeremiah Williams, and you kind of held the Eagles where the Eagles weren't a scoring threat pretty much from that first drive on.
You know what, Doc? I've been saying it all year. Staten Island sports, basketball, football, soccer, lacrosse, even baseball for what they are with Jerry Sibin, what he did at McKee, and with St. Peter's being nationally ranked. We are a small borough, but we produce teams left and right that are always right in the mix for a championship season where it's proud to be, and we call it Shaolin Sports for a reason. We go back to the old school days of that's why we call it Shaolin Sports, of where we grew up, I'm going to say just, listening to Wu-Tang and for what it was. That's how we came up with Shaolin Sports. But what Staten Island Sports represents is incredible. And now we have 2 Staten Island teams, one winning the Catholic school, one winning the public school. And it is beautiful to see. And we hope that it just keeps going for what these coaches and players and parents do and believing in what Staten Island Sports is.
And Peach pointed out, I am currently the junior varsity basketball coach at New Hope High School, and I take great, great pride in that. We had a nice win today over McKee Staten Island Tech. I coach basketball at Curtis. I coach basketball at CSI McCown, and I coach basketball at MSIT. But as far as this particular venture goes, Peach and I are going to be direct and honest no matter what. We're not going to worry about people's feelings. We're also not going to be too harsh on anything, especially we're talking about high school athletes. But we're here to be honest. And so just to wrap that up with C, congratulations, Coach Baptiste. That was an old school one for the purists. And we're talking the rain and the cold. It had been the day before was about a nice 70 degrees, and it just suddenly was just windy and cold. And Coach Baptiste had that defense ready, and the coaching staff at C had that defense ready. Tommy DiGregorio and Anthony Lavazzoli were fantastic. Shout out to my guy Moran. Moran's a sophomore, a kid I had a chance coaching basketball. He had a big catch in the game, and he'll be a huge part of the C offense going forward. But congratulations to both Curtis High School, St. Joseph by the Sea, city champs, Peach, and you can't beat that one from Staten Island.
Doc, I just had another bite of burger. I'm inching my way because now it's a little colder, and I like cold food. I'm kind of approaching your 6.
We're
you
going
said
7-9.
7-9.
I'm going 7-9.
I'm approaching your number.
Well, I guess
Very good burger.
we'll make it an official 7-9 though. Supreme Burger
I'm
smash. We're going to go 7-9 for the group.
Pencil me in for that one.
All right. We're Curtis alums. I had the chance to, well, I use the word play loosely. At least I was on the team for opening night, which is the biggest night on Staten Island. There's a lot of rivalries across the island, but the main attraction, obviously, is Curtis St. Peter's. To my left, Peter Timmins, and it's funny. We worked for a principal in Kojo Campbell who played big-time basketball, played basketball in college, was a great player at Robeson. And when I told him that Peter played basketball in high school, he had no idea. It just shows how modest Pete can be with certain things. But make no mistake about it, the man to my left was a Staten Island High School basketball absolute monster. I watched him get 28 points and 22 rebounds against a Robeson team that had Shamil Watkins and Shamel Jones on the front line. He was, believe it or not, they were a foot taller than him, and he out-rebounded both of them, outworked them. So we have experience, but Pete has no experience in that game. Please tell him why.
Well, I still remember George Thompson being at that game.
John Thompson, yes, legendary Georgetown
John
coach.
Thompson,
Yeah.
right? And I seen with his glass over there, and I was never a good free throw shooter. I think that game I was like 19
You
for
were
20.
John Havlicek on that night. Yes, I remember it vividly.
Listen, I wasn't throwing it underneath my legs. I just, I was in a zone, and it came down to the last minute where Robeson, they wound up winning, but we had a very good team. And R.I.P. Shout outs to my good friend, rest in soul, Sandy Brock. That was
top 5 all time.
Absolutely.
You ask me my top 5 list, he's on it.
And listen, he was so ahead of his time for what he did with the ball, where it was shooting from the outside. And even on that opening night on Thanksgiving, where I couldn't play because back then there was rules.
Yeah, there used to be rules, right?
You had to have like 7 practices in.
And the football team being so good, it prevented basketball players from
right. And that St. Peter's opening night, I think, was our only loss. Besides, we lost to a Bayonne team.
We lost to Bayonne. That kicked the crap out of us. I remember that.
Bayonne
smacked us.
Yeah, but I think they were nationally ranked.
Yeah, they were really good.
And then we had Long Island Lutheran come in, and they had
Vasil Evtimov from North Carolina.
Sick.
And we took him right there. He made Timmins look small. I mean, he was.
No, this kid was a man among men. I mean, listen, I was going Division I football, but this kid, I was like, wow, I got to guard this kid. He's shooting threes from half court. I said, Coach Gannon, what do you want me to do? He was like,
he was a tough matchup.
Do the best you can. I was like, that was my best, and he has 33 points right now.
But we pulled out the win that day.
We did.
2 losses on the season. We were island champs. Made a great run the city playoffs. That Robeson team we lost to, 5 Division I players: Shamil Watkins, Shamel Jones, Todd Miles, Griffith that went to Syracuse. I'm blanking on somebody. But anyway, we want to get back to opening night here as we reminisce, which is always fun to do. Here at Shaolin Sports, we'll go on tants. That's not a thing. Rants and tangents, and that's allowed here because Stevie O said we could. So shout out Stevie O Productions, right? Curtis with a very, very, very big win. Curtis High School has not won the opening night game, and as long as I can remember, I remember Richie Potter. I was his JV coach a long time ago, and I know we got the win opening night with Richie Potter. I honestly don't know if there's been another one since then. I don't know if Coach Archibald has won amongst his opening night games, but Curtis High School came out, and they matched up in St. Peter's in what was an instant, absolute classic.
I went to the game with John Venturella, Dream from Random Mountain Tavern.
Shout out Random Mountain Tavern,
Absolutely.
my man Daydream Swampy. You're the best in the business.
When we went to the game, we actually said to each other, don't let this be a blowout, because in the last, I can't remember, Thanksgiving game has always been one-sided. And for this game to come down with Archibald hitting that 3 with no time left is something that you're not going to ever see probably in the next who knows how long. It came down to a last-second shot. And great game on both sides. Was a little sloppy. Yeah, you're going to get that first game. But St. Peter's was there. Curtis was there. And for them to produce that game where there wasn't a blowout and it made it interesting, because usually that game is just like college kids come back and it's in high schools, like the seniors, they want to go to an event and, tickets were expensive. But
$20. $20
You can go
for a
sit-
high school basketball
you can go
game.
sit in the, you can go
Family
sit
of 5, $100.
you go to the bleachers at a Yankee game on an off day, it costs you $8.
$10, I think. $10 in the Yankee
And
Stadium.
you go to
yeah.
McDonald's across the street and you bring it in.
You got
But for that to come out of a game, it's like finally a good game where people left there going, wow, that's what Thanksgiving Eve is supposed to be about. Two powerhouses with two tremendous coaches with great teams playing. You couldn't ask for anything more.
And just, got a lot of love for Bird, Dwayne Archibald, the Curtis. Great for him to get that win. Last year went to that tough AAA division, quadruple, whatever they call it in the PSCL. Now playing a very tough division, took some losses. But what's born in losses is you get seasoned. Rest in peace, Ed Watkins, right? You get seasoned from them losses. So Curtis had a rough season last year by any standard, especially Curtis Warrior standards. But they made a statement opening night, and there's certainly the two McKee transfers had a big factor in that. But nonetheless, the effort, the energy, everything from Curtis High School. As an alumnus was great to see. I'm not ashamed to admit that, if Newdorf's not playing, I will always root for teams I always coach. I'll always root for Curtis, always root for McKee Tech, I'll always root for CSI McCown to a certain extent. But as that game developed, and just at the end of the game, when Curtis had the biggest moment on the line, 3-year varsity player and a kid that we both know pretty well, who I will say this, if there's any college coaches out there right now, you need to start making your offers. There's no better kid on Staten Island than Alonzo Archibald. And I don't mean basketball player. I mean human being. Alonzo is well-spoken. He's articulate. He is a classy kid who is always just a smile. I remember substituting his class at 61 and just having conversations with him and playing Blook-It and then doing things like that. So I am a massive fan of the kid, and the basketball player makes it easy.
Doc, who got screwed out of the whole thing?
Who's that?
Charlie Donahue.
Yeah.
Like push comes to shove, you got to say Charlie, whether recruiting or not, he lost 2 of his top players to go a block away. Now, listen, I don't know how they're relocating, recruiting. I don't even think like that even exists anymore, where you can only play at your zone school. But for him to lose 2 top players and still he came up with a big win on Thanksgiving Eve, for him to lose that and Curtis gain those 2 players, Curtis is going to be something to reckon with this year. And don't count St. Peter's out what they're doing in the Catholic school division either.
Don't count Charlie Donahue. We play them tonight. Our Newdorf varsity is pretty strong, and we fought out a tough win. But Charlie Donahue has some guys coming back from eligibility, and you never underestimate Charlie Donahue. There's a reason that when Charlie's done, he'll be the all-time leading winner amongst coaches in Staten Island history. So we'll never count Charlie out. But Peach, it's absolute nonsense, and I'm not hating. I like the word hate. I'm an adult. I shouldn't use the word hating. I'm not hating on anyone doing what they're doing or anything like that. But the rules are a joke. It used to be Catholic to public, you could always transfer from a Catholic school to a public school because you could always say, I can't afford to pay tuition anymore. Half the times it wasn't accurate. The kid wasn't paying tuition anyway. But besides that, the fact that kids can go public to public and just do it like NBA free agency is disgusting. And it's not, we're setting kids up to a situation where if you don't like something, if the coach is mean to you, or if you don't like the way you're being used or anything along those ways, you can just take your ball and go home. And it's not preparing them to be adults. But I guess it's kind of like the way it is in college nowadays with the transfer portal. It's just become into high school. But I don't know when the rules change so much where kids can just bounce around and be free agents and play for 3 or 4 different schools. I'm not a big fan whatsoever.
See, and I agree with you because it becomes disgusting. When I was recruited, and back when being recruited, I had to narrow it down to 5 official visits, and my 5 official visits were Syracuse, Wisconsin, Maryland, Arizona, Georgia Tech. Now, I knew nothing. There was no cell phones. There was no social media. There was nothing back then. You had a quarter in your shoelace, and you had to use a payphone. But it's now sad where, like we're talking about college coaches, where they have to rely on a 17-year-old kid that they recruited, that if this kid doesn't stay, their job is on the line. And like you said, coach didn't give me a chance, or somebody beat me out. So you know what? I'm not happy. I'm going to go to the portal, or I'm not getting enough money where they promised me this. And that's the problem with college sports. And listen, I'm going to say right now, it's got to happen nationwide in high school that there is high schools out there that are definitely throwing a swag bag or something at these high school players. I'm not saying it's happening on Staten Island. I don't believe it is. I don't know for a fact it is. If I knew the facts for it, I don't know if I would mention it. But I'm going to say nationwide, it's amazing that the top high school teams in the country keep getting the same top high school recruits, where if you're in California, how is this kid from Florida? How, like, they're going to give up their family that much to leave and go to the entire West Coast, 3,000 miles away to play? I think the whole thing is just needs to be fixed. The NILs are ridiculous. The amount of money these kids are getting. The fact that college quarterbacks are making more than NFL quarterbacks, and they're not even playing.
Yeah.
You look at the Manning kid down in Texas. Kudos to him. He's making $17 million. He's not even the starting quarterback. And he's making more than half the NFL starting quarterbacks for what they are. So something has to be changed.
Right. It was always the argument that the athletes are earning all the money for the school, so they should get paid. But now it just seems like the pay is so out of whack where, this WNBA, the players like Caitlin Clark, their nil money was so much, they took a pay cut to go to the WNBA, right? So, yeah, it's out of control. CSI McCown, I'm the former varsity coach there, and my good friend Danny Lee took over. He had a kid who was prepared to he was the leading scorer on the island last year, and he certainly was a matchup nightmare, ability to shoot the three ball. And I don't know recruiting, I don't know what happened with him, but he's in Georgia right now. I believe Georgia. I could be wrong with that, but he's not in the state of New York anymore. And it's a massive hit to a team, especially like CSI McCown, where I'm experienced there. There's a lottery to get in. It's hard to get kids in. Not the most cooperative administration. I'll just be blunt with that. And it's not easy. So you lose someone like that, and you hate to wonder, like, was he recruited? Was it aggressive? I don't know. Now, listen, ultimately for the kid, I think Danny Lee said it might be what's best for him. He's playing in a real tough division down there, and he's killing right now. So shout out to him. But it sucks for CSI McCown to lose players like that, and for any school, for Charlie Donahue, for Danny Lee, and anybody else. But then again, Newdorp. We had a big win tonight over McKee Staten Island Tech, and our two leading scorers were a transfer from Curtis. Curtis is JV leading scorer from the year before, and Josh, and Billy from Susan Wagner. So our two leading scorers were two transfers. So, and I know, Lord knows, we didn't recruit anybody. They just kind of showed up. So we got a little lucky with that one. So the portal can work for you. The portal can work against you. I just think it should be regulated at some point, and public schools should not be able to bounce back and forth like that.
You know what? Maybe let's take it in hindsight and say it's for educational purposes, that maybe they found a program
Absolutely
at that high school that might be adapting to them, where they're saying, you know what, they didn't have what Curtis has or what McKee has or what Susan Wagner has, and they're saying, you know what, basketball is not always going to be for me. Let me get involved in a program that I want to be involved with my future, whether it's mechanicalism or nursing or,
mechanicalism. Nice.
It's a big word.
It's a fancy word, Peach.
I bet people don't even know that Texas A&M is actually agricultural and mechanicalism. Did you? I
did not know that. Learned something new
Steve,
today.
Did you know that?
We always learn something new here at Shaolin Sports. So shout out to Newdorp High School opening. We talked about opening night. So we talked about Curtis, huge win over St. Peter's. McKee Staten Island Tech, Charlie Donahue keeps racking him up, and I'm telling you, he will be the all-time wins leader when it's all said and done. Well, big over Port Richmond. Newdorp with a big win over CSI McCown. C and Farrell had their typical battle of the South Shore, which never seems to end, with two of the classiest guys on God's green earth, in Mike Cortez and Mike Dunn, two of just the greatest people that I've ever met. I will tell you quickly, when I coached CSI, we didn't have a JV, and I won't name names, but some people were very, very difficult as far as letting my team into the tournament. I had a really strong team that was a PSCL quarterfinalist, and they didn't allow us in, and there was a bunch of nonsense. But Mike Dunn was the one guy who would play us, and we played Farrell opening night every year for a few years there. And if not for Mike Dunn, that wouldn't have happened. So shout out to Mike Dunn. But C, my guy Mike Cortez, the best dressed in the business, gets the big win over Farrell. And then Petrides with a barn burner, 1-point game over Eagle Academy. And your brother, James, one of the coaches over there at Eagle. So shout out my good friend and my former player, James Timmins. That's a little bit of an opening night overview from Staten Island basketball. And again, I know tonight that Newdorp would have win over McKee Staten Island Tech. Newdorp would have lost to Wagner over the weekend in a non-league game. So a lot of basketball here early on, and we'll be covering it as much as we possibly can. Feel free to send me or us information as far as wins and losses, games, things that happen. We'll make sure we work it into future broadcasts. Peach, we're going to transition now, and we're going to go to the professional ranks. I have said from day one, this is not a Johnny-come-lately thing. This is not you can go back on my social media. I have been vehemently against drafting a Duke quarterback from the moment this big, tall, doofy dude from Duke went on the center for the New York Giants. When he won us a playoff game, was I excited? Yes. Was I willing to buy in? Yes. But ultimately, it showed Daniel Jones is an absolute fish. And the New York Giants releasing him is the greatest thing I maybe have ever seen.
Yeah, and I'm still confused why Minnesota would even pick him up. Like if I'm Sam Darnold right now, and I'm in first place and for Minnesota, I would be like, why'd we just do that? Like, are you not believing, or are you looking to get rid of me and thinking that Jones going to take over? And the money that the Giants guaranteed this guy, he hasn't been the same after the neck injury. He hasn't been the same. I'm going to say ever.
Like, he was Danny Dump off his whole life. Listen, Chad Pennington dump off checkdowns his whole career.
Doc,
don't do quarterbacks.
Hold on. Do you think that because of the haircut and the look of Eli Manning, is it like, you know what? He could be the next Eli Manning.
Sure.
Same floppy haircut.
Personality, quiet,
Duke's
reserved.
Probably top institution in the country. But, yeah, it's sad to say, and here's what's disgusting about New York sports right now. We have two of the top franchises in the world, in the NFL, and we share a stadium, which is just
the worst stadium,
a complete disaster. It's a garage.
Peach, if you
That's not. What's really funny is the fucking bank job away in Sea Caucus. I'm in the middle of the fucking weeds, laying down.
If you open the stadium catalog, if there was a catalog that said we're gonna rebuild stadiums, if you open to page 1, that's what the Giants bought. It's the first most basic generic model you could ever imagine.
Right. It's like
it is an absolute dump.
It's like when we got the Toys R Us catalog when we were kids, and it was like the one crap toy, and you turn the next page like, ooh, that's the one I want. The first page was the Giants stadium of the crap toy, and then you actually turn the page like, ooh, that's the one I want. And you look what Jerry Jones did down in Dallas. Ready? No taxes. Didn't have to worry about it. By the way, it cost half the price of what the Giants and Jets, who share a stadium.
Right. Scary.
Like
I don't know how this occurred. Yeah.
How is this possible that two of the highest grossing NFL teams share a stadium at a garage? That's what it is.
It is absolute disgrace. So Daniel Jones, good riddance. Nothing personal against the young man, but put in a position where, a year or so ago we were faced with we could franchise tag or sign Saquon Barkley and let Daniel Jones just move on. And they went the other way where they signed Jones, and very famously, right? Sean was on the behind the scene, the behind the scenes show that HBO does. And they recorded him having the conversation with Saquon and telling him to go test the market. Well, he tested the market. He got $13 million a year, and he may be the MVP of the NFL.
Well, not only that, but he's on track to break Eric Dickerson's rushing record at, I think, 21, 25 yards. And listen, he also played 15 games before he broke O.J. Simpson's record, where he got to 21, 25. Take that out of the equation because the game is completely different. But right now, Saquon and Derrick Henry with Ravens.
Oh, awesome.
Another stud, where if you're looking at it, these two could actually both break it with 5-6 games left. I don't know. Does playoffs count in terms of
not
rushing
for the stats? No, yeah, not for just regular season for awards and such.
So say they got 5 games left, and I think they were only about maybe 100 yards apart. I think Saquon had about 1395 going into this game. I don't know right in front of me what he had yesterday. I don't know what Derrick Henry had yesterday. I know that was a bad loss for them at home. Where they now, I think they're 8-5, and they're in a very tough AFC division where it's like, whoa, they started out hot, and it's like, whoa, boys, we're 8-5. We're now almost approaching third. It's the AFC and the NFC are completely different entities. And I'm going to say this, the NFL product is absolutely atrocious right now from start to finish.
It's becoming flag football-ish. But as a Giants fan, Peach, we'll talk to you about this. My personal opinion, the best strategy going forward, and coaches don't want to do it because they're coaching for their jobs, and players don't want to do it because they're playing for their own jobs, whether it be to re-sign with the Giants or spot another team to put out some good film. But if there's a God, we will lose every game the rest of the way and control our own destiny, whether it be the first pick, the second pick. But the Giants need the first pick, the second pick. They need something. They can't keep getting these 5 or 6 picks when they have bad seasons.
Well, Doc, I'll be honest. The only reason I'm going to watch the Giant game is because I hope they lose, because that gives us at least a shot. Because right now we're in that 1 or 2 spot where, in my mind, I think Sanders out of Colorado, he's probably the top quarterback. He's a pocket passer. He's thrown for almost 15,000 yards in 4 seasons. I was looking at his stats yesterday. I think he has like in his 4 years between Jacksonville State and Colorado, I think he's like 75 touchdowns and maybe 11 interceptions, right along those lines with 15,000 yards. Like, that's almost 7.5 miles of throwing the ball.
And he certainly has the pedigree with his old man being Deion Sanders.
Now,
right?
now, do you? If we have a chance, I personally think Travis Hunter would be that guy where you get a cover corner, a beast. The kid's a beast, and he's also an offensive threat, just receiving.
That's probably where I go if I'm running the Giants, which I'm not. But after watching the Hard Knocks, I think I could run the Giants better than Shaolin or whatever you pronounce his name is. Shout out to Steve Odessa at 46 years old, being able to climb under the cameras right now, avoiding the camera shot here. Very professional.
Well, you know, he's used to it because we were told before, like, and we're not going to curse too much on this, but we call that an oh shitter as a fireman, where it's like you pull up as a fireman, and you know, my brother's one, my stepbrother's one, and my stepfather, he was one. But I said, how many you been in? He goes, I remember a alarm five alarm fire. And he was like, I pulled up and I was like, that's what you call an OSer. And he was like, yes. He was like, it's not what you want. And he just did an 05er right there behind us because he didn't want to be on camera. Kudos to you, Stevie.
True professional. So I agree with Peachy. I think if the Giants can find a way to draft Travis Hunter, you match up Hunter and Neighbors on the same team. I mean, that is adding two. Now I don't know in free agency, you know, who could Russell Wilson's a free agent, Jameis Winston's a free agent. I think it's got to be a veteran stopgap. Well, you have to go if you're going to draft or you can go the complete other direction and make a Chicago Bears like trade back with someone in the 5th or 6th pick, go from 1 to 6, but get a 1 for the future, a 2 for the future, because the Giants are weak at a lot of different positions.
So a couple weeks ago, I was saying, you know, what would be great for the Giants, and besides that hit that he took yesterday, Trevor Lawrence, I felt would have been a great pick for the Giants to say, you know what, let's get a veteran quarterback. Look at Goff. He took a team to the Super Bowl, and the Rams wrote him off. And all of a sudden, look what he's doing with Detroit right now. If I was the Giants, you know, yes, he got hurt with a sprained knee 2 weeks ago, and then he comes back and he takes a massive hit yesterday where, you know, you don't want to see that rigor mortis of that concussion where, you know, Tua took multiple times, which I don't understand how a doctor can even sign off and say, you know what, you're good to play for another, you know, a year. Mm-hmm. When you take 3 concussions like that, where you're like your body's in rigor mortis stage, where your arms aren't moving and you're just a board on the floor, I personally wouldn't have took that responsibility. But I would have said, you know, 2 weeks ago before the injury with the knee, and then yesterday with the concussion, Trevor Lawrence, bring Tane over, bring both Clemson boys to New York. I would have been fine with that. But after yesterday, now I'm like, all right, do we start all over? But I'm not a fan of rookie quarterbacks.
Right. Well, you know, look at the last year. Tommy Cutlets won a meaningless game for the Giants at the end of the season.
Killed us.
Now, we got Neighbors, but we also could have ended up with the quarterback from Washington.
We wouldn't have had Neighbors, though.
We would probably have had the quarterback from Washington, be my guess, and that kid is special. So we'll see how it plays out, but hopefully the Giants, if they're going to, now we'll see what it plays out with the whole organization. Are they going to keep showing? Are they going to keep? I happen to think Dabbs hasn't really gotten a fair shot. Dabbs runs a quarterback-driven offense and hasn't had a quarterback. So I would like to see Dabbs back, but I hope Schoen goes. But whoever's there, I like the Travis Hunter plan. If not, I like the plan of the Chicago Bears, like plan of a massive trade for a big haul, get a bunch of draft picks going forward, a bunch of picks in that draft. Sanders, listen, if they draft Sanders, he's throwing for a ton of yards. I'm just not sold personally. But hey, listen, like you pointed out, Peach, 75 touchdowns. He's throwing the ball, 70,000 yards, whatever it is.
He's a legit pocket passer. So ready, and if I'm Dabbs, and right now, if I'm in that GM meeting, I'm going to go, you didn't give me the quarterback like what he did with Josh Allen, right? Like that, what Dabbs did with Josh Allen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's going to say, give me the quarterback that I want. I didn't have nothing to do with Jones. So let me recruit a quarterback and a couple offensive linemen and a running back. Once you lost Saquon, you lost a scat back, you lost a running back, you lost a threat, you lost a defensive of staff that says we have to have our defensive plan around Saquon. And we don't have that for the Giants.
Absolutely not. And we'll transition now to the Giants' roommate and that dump of a stadium in East Rutherford, the Jets. If the Giants have a disaster of a season, the Giants did not have very high expectations win-loss wise. The Giants are basically having the season we may have expected, although no one could predict how bad Jones would have been. The Jets had very high hopes, and even earlier in the season, made a trade for Devontae Adams, didn't give up, kept fighting, kept fighting. The Jets season, Aaron Rodgers, the whole thing is just one big massive disaster, Peach.
You know, and it goes back to, and think back to when, you know, we said, as a, you know, I'm a New York fan, which I might transition to a Bills fan because I'm still technically in New York, but go back to Brett Favre, another old guy that we were like, oh no, it's going to be that Super Bowl year. And the same thing we did with Aaron Rodgers, it's going to be that Super Bowl year. And it's amazing. The gamblers out there, they know the amount of money that was shifted from what he was going to be as a playoff team, Super Bowl team. If Aaron Rodgers is not on the Jets, they're 50-1. He goes on a team, they go now 12-1 because they're saying we have Devontae, we have everybody on the offense, we are receivers, we have a cornerbacks that can play. We signed $140 million to what's his name? Juice? What's his name?
The big lineman there. I'm blanking on the name as well. Williams.
Williams.
Yep.
No, who's the cornerback?
Sauce Gardner.
Sauce
Sorry.
Gardner.
Williams, the Giants. Yes.
Right. So, but they gave so much money out, and now look where you are again. And now Aaron Rodgers says, "No, I want to stay on the Jets." Why? What are you doing for us? You're not doing anything at 41 years old.
And he don't seem to be making many friends in the organization. What you read, if you read what we believe, Leon Hess, am I saying Leon Hess? Woody Johnson, I'm sorry, Leon Hess, the owner, previous owner, wanted to remove him after week 4 as a starting quarterback and talked about it. Interesting to see. I just thinking about this now for the first time ever. What if Aaron Rodgers switched over to New York? What if Aaron Rodgers in the offseason went to sign with the Giants and he became the veteran stopgap for the Giants? Maybe something they could think about. You get yourself Travis Hunter, Malik Neighbors, and Aaron Rodgers, you know. But then again, the Jets haven't worked out. You got 2 elite receivers on the Jets, and they haven't been able to do much, along with an elite running back. So you have all the pieces. But for whatever reason, whether it's coaching and I think Salah may have gotten a raw deal. The defense has fallen apart since he's been gone. I mean, I don't think he deserved any credit neither, but it certainly wasn't all his fault. Nonetheless, Jets, disaster. Giants, disaster. Both team dumpster fires. If you could be one going forward, don't know. Giants with a little bit more cap space in the offseason. We'll see what happens. Both teams have to answer that quarterback question in the offseason one way or another. We'll stay on the gridiron and talk about it. So Christian McCaffrey, again, Pete, best running back in the NFL, debatably, at least certainly the best fantasy running back, we'll say, because of his ability to run the ball and catch the ball. Now likely out for the season with a PCL. And just across the board here is telling me Mason, the backup, who was at a fantastic year backing him up, he's also out for the season. So it's been a rough year in San Francisco.
So when McCaffrey was out in the first game of the season, Mason was, it's almost like this guy's going to reinvent his career. You know, like he might have ran for $1.50 or something phenomenal. But now McCaffrey, what do you do now? If like, you know, if you're him, like do you keep one, keep the other, or does he now go on the trade market and say, maybe this is not the team for me either?
It's just a tough trade. It's the highest contract for a running back in the league, so his contract's very tough to trade.
Yeah, but these teams have so much money. Why would they not?
It's tough. McCaffrey, you know, he's approaching 30, which is like the end of the line for running backs in most cases. You know, they would talk about Saquon Barkley.
They wrote him off. They wrote Saquon off.
At 27 years old, writing Saquon off. Now, listen, Saquon goes to the Eagles, and he gets hurt, which he did spend a lot of time on the Giants, injured and not playing. He gets hurt, then it's a genius move by Shaolin. Unfortunately, he's been the opposite of hurt and been the best player in the National Football League, in my opinion. So, San Francisco, rough. We wanted to mention one more mention.
You know, real quick, Doc, if you're the Jets and Giants right now, and I know season ticket holders that are debating, like, both teams need to make a significant move of saying, yes, we have these players coming in on the draft. If you're a season ticket holder, are you locked in?
I mean, season ticket holders, like I've been a Knicks season ticket holder, so I know. I've been a Knicks season ticket holder during the Eddie Curry, Isaiah Thomas regime.
But look at the PSLs down in Dallas. If you're a PSL, you have rights to your seat to every event, whether it's a concert, whether it's who knows.
It's a true PSL.
It's a true
personal
PSL.
seat license.
So now, so they have the Jets and Giants. They have the PSL where someone's sharing that seat, and you still don't have the rights to it. What are the benefits actually paying back into being a season ticket holder for that reason?
There's none. If you're telling me the Jets, if I buy a Jets PSL and I can also go see Bruce Springsteen in that same seat,
You don't have it.
well worth the investment. But that's not the case. And I don't understand how anyone pays for a Jets PSL, to be totally honest with you. But football fans are the most starving of fans. You know, it's the quickest season.
Especially New York fans.
Yeah.
That's what they do. Like, even that Jet game, like, you can't sell your ticket, and you say, you know what? We still have to go to the game because I didn't sell it, but what am I doing? Like, it's 1 o'clock game. At 4 o'clock game, I'm out. And it was freezing Sunday, by the way.
And watching on East Rutherford this weekend. I'm not sure who's home or away this weekend, but it'll be sold out. It'll be a crowd, whether the tickets are given away or donated or whatever. But there'll be butts in the seats in that parking lot. We'll have, whether it's people who paid money and committed to it or people that gave their seats away. But that parking lot will be crowded, as you pointed out. Football fans are amongst the most loyal in any sport. That is for sure.
Yeah, I'll see January 7th when it's 22 degrees, and they're like, you know what are we doing out here right now?
When you're looking at I guarantee if you turn that TV on, you will not see empty seats. People, for whatever reason, they flock. I would never go to a game. I don't care what. I have no interest in attending an NFL playoff game, even if it was that cold. I happen to enjoy football. Football, I think, translates to television better than any other sport. And there's a lot of information you get watching on television you won't find in person. So I happen to enjoy football. I like the experience of going to a game. But as an observer, I do enjoy football and television probably more than other sports, whereas I don't watch hockey at all. But live hockey with Richie Rusarito, Richie Rusarito, athletic director at Newdorf. I went to a game with him, and it might be the most fun I've had at a sporting event in my life. And I didn't know one player on either team, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. So it just goes to show the different environments for sporting events. Peach, one more thing we had to shout out. The Pittsburgh Steelers, 21 consecutive seasons without a losing record. And from Coach Mike Tomlin, 17 consecutive seasons without a losing record. That is absolutely phenomenal.
Now, you look at that right there. That is unbelievable and insane that a franchise, you don't see that in basketball. You don't see that in hockey. You don't see that in maybe soccer, where there's always dominant teams. But for where we are in North America, you don't see a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers that are 21 straight season that are above 500 in a sport.
No, you don't. It's a shout out to Coach Tomlin and the Steelers organization. Mike Tomlin's been the head coach of the Steelers for most of my adult life, and he replaced a legend in Bill Cowher, and Bill Cowher never came back. Bill Cowher could have his choices of jobs for many, many years, never came back. I guess partly for family situations. I know his wife was sick, and they went through a lot of stuff there, but also maybe some loyalty to Pittsburgh. So my Aunt Sally's from Pittsburgh. Shout out Aunt Sally. I know she's happy, and shout out to the Steelers. I love consistency. Curtis Peters, consistency. I'd like to believe teams I've coached over the last 20 years, consistency. You want consistency. You want consistency out of employees. You want consistency out of supervisors. You want consistency just in life. So shout out to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Our last topic.
Hold on, Doc.
Oh, well, not our last topic. Peachy got a curveball already.
Because I'm just thinking, think about how many NFL quarterbacks right now, and we're talking about like what Pittsburgh is as 21 straight seasons of being over 500. Look at the top NFL quarterbacks in the league right now that are below 500 that are making $40+ million a year, and we can throw them out there.
Jones, Prescott, two to come to mind immediately. My man Josh Acott saying $60 million.
Okay, ready? Then throw in Aaron Rodgers.
Trevor Lawrence.
Okay, then throw in Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson is the biggest highway robbery.
Now,
Deshaun Watson, it's the Browns. I don't know what they were thinking signing a guy who'd been out and hadn't played, but oh my God.
Now throw in Burrow. Hold on. He's having a good season, but look at their record.
We're going to give Burrow a pass. I will personally give Burrow a pass. I mean, they have.
But
if the defense can't stop anybody,
if you're getting paid that much money, then you are out shooting another team. Russell Wilson, okay.
Well, Russell Wilson he's getting paid from the Broncos a substantial amount of money. Steelers league minimum, and he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So it just goes
right. But I'm saying, look at the money that they have to
guarantee money from Denver. Denver had, I think, a $76 million cap hit.
My point being, we just named 6 quarterbacks besides one that you're talking about $1.5 billion of underperformance of NFL quarterbacks right now.
And in case you're wondering, Peach and I we don't know how to use a computer really. Stevie O is the backbone of all this. Shout out Stevie O Productions. We got one piece of paper. with just some things written down. Okay, all this stuff you hear from the top of the head. The iPad's in front of me. Stevie provided me, but I forgot the passcode, so I haven't even used that.
Doc,
throughout the
I
broadcast.
had 2 heart attacks today. I've never had social media my entire life. I came here about 6:45, and I said, Stevie, you got to log me on to all these Twitters and Fitches and Twitches and anything else that has social media. And he was like, Peach, just put your face here, do this. And he's going in my notes of actually just saying, mark this down of how to get onto these sites. And I'm like, well, how do I just not have people follow me? Because I don't know how that works. Next thing I know,
I don't want them to be my friend.
I have 975 contacts. I don't know probably 500 of them. I mean, it's the course of 25 years. I don't know who these people are. So I'm like, denied. It's scary, this social media thing.
Well, we're gonna have to open our gates, Peach, because we want the unscrupulous,
We'll
the
figure it
scrupulous,
out. We
the
will.
good, the bad, the ugly, whoever. If you're a subscriber and you're a follower, and again, we'll shout out YouTube, Shaolin Sports, Instagram, Shaolin Sports 1, and Twitter, Shaolin_sports. And Stevie O will be running that department. Lord knows Peachy, and I don't know how to do that. Twitch, I'm told. I don't even know what that is, but Twitch, I believe, started as like a video game thing and is now just branched out. Stevie was talking to us about it. Just the way the internet's evolved and content. I watch a housewife in Rhode Island who I don't even know her name, and all she does is make like lunch for her husband, and I watch it every time I see it, and I'm infatuated with it. It just goes to show what can catch people's interest. So who knows, Peach? Maybe some people will catch interest with us, and we can retire from teaching and do this full time.
I'll be honest. I'm going to say, Doc, what time are you doing this? Because I'm just thinking, like, you're watching this at another person make dinner for somebody else?
I watch, yeah, she makes like videos of how she makes the things. Sometimes she makes food and pretends it's the fast food or pretends it's from a place and sees her husband guess the difference.
So let's go back. What time are you watching? It's like when all right, so ready. I got caught up the other night watching QVC. It was 1:00 in the morning. I'm like, that's a great cordless vacuum. And I don't know if it's on sale, but it was $129. Next thing you know, with taxes, it was $205. I said, maybe it wasn't really a deal. So now I have like 3 vacuums in my house where I don't even know where I'm putting them. But I thought it was a very good vacuum because, unfortunately, well, the kitten's cute, but that's another story.
That's an expensive kitten. Yeah, I heard about the peachy kitten over the Timmins house.
Oh, what was I doing? I was in the backwoods of Sheepshead Bay, whatever.
Peachy has the world's most expensive cat. Now, I can't stand cats because I'm very allergic, but I
It's
got to
a
admit,
nice
she's a looker. It's a looker, that's for sure. Yeah, so we will go kicking and screaming into this social media age. We're going to do everything we possibly can. Last topic, I'm not forgetting to do this before we sign off on our first ever Shaolin Sports broadcast brought to you. I'm shaking the walls. My bad, Stevie. It's brought to you by Stevie O Production here live from the basement studio and the Sports Center desk. We look great. I'm wearing an orange shirt. Stevie got mad at me for it. I'll wear a dark shirt next time. That'll show better. My beloved New York Knicks. For all of you people out there who are casuals, as people say, shut up. You don't know what you're saying. I don't want to hear about problems 15 games in, okay? We have a whole new roster. Towns, Bridges, the acclamation of the Knicks. We are 12-8. We are 5 games back of first place Cleveland. We are in 4th place overall. Anyone that watches the New York Knicks knows it takes Tommy Tibbs about 20 games to figure things out. Yesterday was an absolute annihilation. Again, a much injured Pelicans team, but nonetheless, a domination of a Pelicans team. And I cannot wait. When this trade happened at first, I was a little... My first reaction was I wasn't sure because of the depth, and the depth could hurt us. If anyone gets hurt, then we're talking about Deuce being our 6th man to a starter, and we have no bench. So, again, an injury could ruin everything. But with the starting 5 we have, we are as good as any team in the NBA. Tibbs will get them to defend. Tibbs will get them their rotations down pat. He will use the incredible, incredible length that OG Anunoby and Miles Bridges provide. OG Anunoby and Miles Bridges are not good defenders. They are elite world-class defenders. And Karl Anthony Towns, my only concern with him was rebounding. But when you look at his stats, he always rebounded in the pre-Rudy Gobert years. His last few years, they put him next to Rudy Gobert, who's 9 foot tall, and Gobert swallowed up a lot of those rebounds. But Towns is the 5th leading rebounder in the NBA right now. The inside-out game. Brunson's at season high, his career high in assists. I am absolutely in love with this team, and I believe, Peachy, that Coach Tibbs will have this group, and we're set up for a nice summer in New York City basketball.
The Knicks, I think right now, they're the highest scoring team.
Lately, they have been, absolutely.
Lately, in the NBA.
They've been putting the ball in the basket.
The only thing I have with Tibbs, can we just shave the head? Are we really just relying on those 5 pieces of hair? or I don't know if that's Soul Glow. I don't know if that's an oil.
Just
but
let it
like,
shine
just,
through.
you know what?
Oh, that's singing.
Either go to a mullet or like, you know, like just get rid of it. It's tough to watch, and it's very oily. I mean, like with the sweat goes in his eye. I you know, like does he,
Couldn't agree more. I think it's like the Mike Jarvis. If you could just shave the front and just have the sides, he'd be fine. The Jeff Van Gundy look would be fine for Tibbs. But yeah, he's holding on for dear life, like someone that fell
no,
from a
Van
boat.
Gundy had like, you know, he had a little bit more hair.
Yeah, at first.
He's down to 5 strands, literally.
Yeah, if he gets a haircut, he literally gets a haircut.
No.
So that is what.
Just take one over the
but
top
I
and
will,
2 off the floor.
That is my. You talk about people like 3 dinner guests. Who would you pick? I don't know who the other 2. I'm sorry, I don't know who the last one would be. But my first 2 are Tommy Thibodeau and Jeff Van Gundy. Jeff Van Gundy is my favorite coach of all time, and Tibbs, who has just coached his way into my heart. I had tickets, Peach, during the COVID years. And we went to the Garden during COVID. If you were sitting across the court, you could hear. If I yelled at you from across you could hear, because there's only about 200 people allowed in the place with all the social distancing nonsense. And I could hear Tibbs and the passion and the effort and everything he puts in and all this stuff from the past. Now, listen, with the Bulls and with the Timberwolves, I don't know what happened, but he's evolved. People talk about his practices. They're not grueling anymore. It's not what it used to be. He's evolved. He's now become more of a player's coach. And the fact that all of his players seem to have his back seems to back that stance.
Listen, I don't think anybody practices anymore. I think they just go around and shoot around. And I think there's still like, you know, like let's go out there and just do this 1 or 2 plays. But I'm going back. He's one of the top 3 people that you would go sit down and dinner with.
I couldn't. Tommy Tibbs, Jeff Van Gundy are 1 and 2. Yes.
Are you talking sports or overall?
Overall, well, my whole life is sports. I don't, you know,
Well, no,
I would not want to.
Like I want to sit down like Frank Sinatra. Like I want to go down.
If you told me Frank Sinatra or Jeff Van Gundy, I wouldn't think twice. And I know that's not. That's.
Hold on.
Well, I would love.
Which
You know what?
one?
That's what we'll have. Tom Tibbs, Jeff Van Gundy, Stevie O. That sounds like a great night.
That one or with Frank Sinatra. You know what? And I would like to hear I would like to hear Bob Marley's story too. Maybe Jim Morrison. I would like to hear something along those lines. But I'm not going to sit down with a head coach if you give me Frank Sinatra next to me. I want to know exactly what's going on or what happened between the 60s, 70s, and even the 80s. What's going on with that?
You could throw Method Man on mine. I just made it up. But I'm going Jeff Van Gundy, Tom Thibodeau, Method Man. Do you really? No crap. Yeah. Well,
sounds expensive.
Shout out to Method Man. Method Man, years ago when I coached at McKee Staten Island Tech, I wrote a proposal to him to buy us uniforms. His response was, get whatever you need, but don't spare any money. Spend as much money as you need to get the most top quality uniform. That was his response. We spent about $20,000. This is back before the internet. This is before you could order from all these places. So we ordered like custom made from some other country somewhere. It took like 4 months to show up. But they were the nicest uniforms Staten Island has ever seen. And Charlie Donahue rode those things till they fell off. So shout out Method Man. Personally, my favorite rapper of all time. The greatest rapper of all time is a debate, but my personal favorite rapper, who do I want to hear rap? Method Man, the GOAT in my book. Getting back to the Knicks, one last thing, the buyout market. The Knicks bench is not that deep. After the trading deadline, they're going to make a trade. This year in particular, the Knicks are a really attractive destination for a buyout. So those guys get bought out of their contracts. You know, they could use a backup wing, maybe a backup point guard, although Cameron Payne's played very well. But a backup scorer, defender, things like that. So the buyout market, big thing to look for with the New York Knicks, Peach.
You know what? Also, when you're a professional player, you also have to look at the taxes that New York players have to pay. And yes, you get the market for commercials and everything else. But it's coming down to these professional athletes. They're looking at the market and they're looking at where are the tax-free states that actually get to keep my money. Look at the Major League Baseball players. They'll go down to Texas. They'll get a $240 million contract. And you know what? You're keeping all of it. You go down to Florida. You're keeping all of it. You come to New Jersey, New York, California. You're not keeping all of it. You're paying a ridiculous number. So these guys are now starting to think, I get it. It's New York market. You're under a lot of scrutiny. But where is the money going to be in 5 years where I'm not giving it back to the system?
And that market is not what it once was. With the social media, the internet, you know, you have opportunities in Wisconsin just as much as you have in New York. You know, it's not like you can meet digitally. COVID, we taught virtually but for COVID. The kids weren't in the room with us, and we still taught them. So you had business meetings, job interviews, everything was done, you know, virtually. So
Doc,
that's changed the world.
Now look, real quick, we're going to end soon. Look at Soto. And now Aaron Judge said, pay him whatever he wants. Now, Soto, in my eyes, He can go anywhere he wants. He's that guy that's going to get that huge contract. You go to New York, you're signing $600 million. You're walking away after you pay your publicist, you pay your agent, you pay your taxes. It's not $600 million. It's probably like 160. You know, like
I'm not sure the math works, but yeah, and he's a Boris guy too, I believe. And Boris guys, they go for every last cent. But Soto, the rumors are that the Mets, the Red Sox, and Toronto are the Final Four along with the Yankees. There's so many ways you can go.
Give me Pete Alonso at first.
If you can get me Pete Alonso, a Corbin Burnson, and somebody else instead of Soto, it certainly makes up the difference. It's a lot of money, but Soto is unprecedented in that he is 26 as a free agent. Usually guys are a few years older when they hit free agency. So Soto, even if you sign him to a 12-year contract, he's coming out of it at 38 years old, which is still relatively young for a corner outfielder. With his defensive liabilities, because he's not the best in the field, it's a tough call. But when you watch him hit a walk-off home run that sends him to a World Series, you hate to see him play for somebody else as well. So am I rooting for the Yankees to re-sign Soto? Absolutely. Is it the end of the world if we don't? Depends. Are we going to be the old George Steinbrenner Yankees where we don't get Soto, but we go out there and get? I would love Pete Alonso at first. Pete Alonso at first base as far as scooping the balls, the best in the business right now. He's clutch with the home runs, low batting average, things like that. But batting average doesn't matter anymore. If they can add an Alonso, a piece to the rotation, get a veteran for third base or second base, either one, and then plug second base with a youngster, Yankees situation looking up, Peach.
I agree. And you know what? The Yankees, they put Cole right against the wall. They said, "No, what? Go test." And they were like, all of a sudden it was like, "Oh, that didn't work out for you. So I'm going to stay here."
So if you're unfamiliar, Garrett Cole had an option on his contract to opt out of his contract, and the Yankees had the option to add on one more year at about $38 million when he would be a 37-year-old pitcher. And the Yankees were like, "Nope, we're good." And Cole just immediately backed out because Cole grew up a New York fan. He's pictured in. He has a famous picture with Derek Jeter. He's in the background of stuff from the '98 World Series. So he grew up as a New York fan, and yeah, like Peach, like you call someone's bluff, and once in a while you win, right? So good things happen. So Garrett Cole, he'll be back as the ace of the rotation, or maybe not. Who knows? Maybe we sign somebody else that can take that ace role. But exciting for the Yankees. We'll see what happens with Soto. And just like the Yankees, this podcast will evolve. I have never watched a full podcast in my life. I don't know what I've heard of them. I've seen them. I love Drink Champs with Nori and a few other things, but I've never actually watched a full episode of anything in my life. So I don't know if we follow the traditional podcast format. But here going forward, Peach, we have some plans. We want to bring in guests. We talked about having Terrence Haggerty and Daydream John Venturella, have them both here in the booth and just talk to us about owning bars in West Brighton, having legendary fathers. We've talked about bringing in coaches of all sports, of middle school, high school, little kids.
No, we talk about like even with them with the Cherry Lane.
Yeah,
no one knows what Cherry Lane is. Like
the beauty of the Cherry Lane.
How did that come to be?
And the name of the Cherry Lane, how they came up with it, how you have 100 guys playing golf on a Sunday. Just a beautiful, beautiful thing. So at some point, we're going to bring those two in. We're going to bring in coaches of all different sports. We're going to bring in anybody we possibly can. And we're not going to limit ourselves to sports. We're going to keep it mostly sports. But if other things pop up that aren't religion, that aren't politics, and not anything that's going to anybody too sensitive.
And Doc, we're also going to bring a lot of women's sports in.
Yes.
It's going to be across the board because women's sports and flag football and softball and everything on Staten Island, that's another entity of what we want to do. We are not limiting ourselves to any particular gender, race. You want to play a sport, you want to play the game, you have a story, we're going to bring you in, and we're going to bring you in for what it is of your belief and make us believe why you're here at Shaolin Sports.
And we're also not limiting ourselves to sports. We are going to branch out with thanks to the genius of DJ Stevie O and the abilities of, we'll hire some other companies. We're looking to broadcast games. We're looking to broadcast events. If you have a football game, basketball game, volleyball. Oh, you mentioned women's sports and girls' sports. The most fun I have had at a sporting event, you were there, at a sporting event in the last 5 years was IS-61 girls volleyball at IS-61.
Oh,
they had the music pumping. They had the ball going back and forth, and it was so exciting. I didn't know the rules. I was asking things. The girls played. They got a huge win that day, if I remember correctly. But girls' sports has really, I should say women's sports, girls' sports, depending on the age, has been a tremendous rise. And we will do our due diligence to make sure we represent for the girls' side of the sports as well. And shout out Layla Timmins, More Catholic, one one of the most well-rounded young ladies and athletes on Staten Island. We'll actually use her as a resource to keep us keyed in to the girls' sports here on Staten Island.
I'm in, Doc.
All right, so I'm Ray Palmer. I don't know how to sign off. I am not a professional, but we're going to get more professional as things goes on. So I want to give a huge shout out to DJ Stevie O. Check out DJ Stevie O on all social media platforms. Check out us on YouTube at Shaolin Sports, Instagram at Shaolin Sports 1, Twitter, Shaolin_sports. As you hear, ODB is playing me off, so I'm going to stop talking. On behalf of Peter Timmins, I'm Ray Palmer. This is Shaolin Sports signing off. We'll see you next time, folks.
Let's take it back.